Anyone who watched the Jehovah's Witnesses 2024 annual meeting knows that things are not going well with this religion. A number of changes were announced during the 2024 annual meeting, and some of these changes actually shocked many people, probably within the organization and outside the organization. What are the implications of these changes? So in this episode, we are going to look at why the Jehovah's Witnesses religion is not doing well. In the second part, we will be looking at the underlying reasons, because the official reasons have been given in the first part, but we'll look at the underlying reasons why these changes have been made. And the underlying reasons are the real reasons why the governing board of the Jehovah's Witnesses has made these changes. So let's begin to look at these policies and listen to the official explanation why these policy changes have been made. Let's begin with the changes to the shunning policy. Jehovah's Witnesses have enforced the shunning policy for members who have been disfellowshipped or disassociated. If the congregation elders find out that you've broken the Jehovah's Witnesses rule, for example, maybe a misconduct that is against the organization, or maybe they realize that you have been questioning the authority or the doctrines of the Jehovah's Witnesses, once they investigate you and find that you have committed an offense, a judicial committee is constituted. This judicial committee, or many consisting of 3 elders, will make an assessment to find out if indeed you've committed an offense. And if truly they find that you've committed an offense and you don't show repentance, you don't show remorse, then they will disfellowship you. Actually, disfellowshipping is an act of separating you from the community of Jehovah's Witnesses. But the shunning is a policy of other members of the community avoiding to have any interaction with you. Now, this policy has been used as a control mechanism for members.
Ability to have relationships with all my family. My brother-in-law, who was a ministerial servant, was removed because they didn't immediately kick me out of their house when I was disfellowshipped. So there were consequences for the people that I think kept contact. And that's, a good way to keep those people in line with all the rules as well and enforce this is, well, if you're going to talk, you can be disfellowshipped for having a relationship, like even a family relationship with somebody who's disfellowshipped.
What is the very best thing we can do for those who are disfellowshipped? We already read it in 1 Corinthians 5:11. Stop keeping company with them, not even eating with them. Some of Jehovah's people may think this is too drastic, and that their keeping in contact with a disfellowshipped friend or relative is a kindness. But they could not be more wrong about that.
Even when it comes to close family members, the interactions are minimal, and where it is absolutely necessary, particularly where the shunned person is a minor living together with the parents. And as soon as that minor becomes an adult, they show him the door. Let's listen to this clip.
Because from what I can understand is that you got disfellowshipped in January, and then they said you had until you graduated
graduated school, yeah.
So
that conversation took place right away. So within a day or two, my dad returned home from work. We sat down. I expected to be booted out right there. My dad said he would allow me to stay as long as I attended the meetings. I could no longer go out and field service because you're not allowed to, obviously, but I had to attend the meetings. If I didn't, that was it. I was out. So I was allowed to stay there until I finished high school. So, and literally the day I finished high school, I can remember my stuff being outside, and my mom, I still can see her standing in the front window and just pointing at the road. Couple bags sitting outside.
Now, while shunning still remains as the official policy for dealing with erring members, in 2024, the governing body of the Jehovah's Witnesses announced some relaxation or relaxed some of these rules.
Even when the elders inform a person that he's being removed from the congregation, he won't be left hopeless. The committee will not simply explain what steps he can take to be welcomed back into the congregation. What else will they do? The elders will explain that they'd like to meet with the individual again after a few months to see if he's had a change of heart. If the individual is willing to meet, the elders will make a warm appeal for him to repent and return.
If you are enjoying this program, don't forget to like, subscribe, and strike the notice bell so that every time I upload a new video, you will be notified. And then you can choose whether to watch it or not to watch it. Now, what has been introduced is that the members of the Jehovah's Witnesses can maintain some limited contact with a disfellowshipped person. What about family members? Family members can be able to maintain contact with a disfellowshipped member under certain circumstances, such as caregiving or in emergencies. Now, what are the official reasons for relaxation of the shunning policy? All of a sudden, the governing body of Jehovah's Witnesses have just realized that they can now be able to provide a balanced approach that is in line with biblical principles. So all these years, 1.5 centuries that this organization has existed, did not realize about biblical principles when it was shunning its members. It is only now, 2024, that they've realized that they need to practice biblical principles. They even know that the shunning policy was not in line with biblical principles, but they still practiced them and called themselves Jehovah's Witnesses. Let's look at another policy change, and that is in the dress code. Women in the organization are expected to adhere to modest dress standards, avoiding attire considered overly trendy, revealing, or masculine. So basically, women are expected to wear traditional form of attire, the one that they were wearing in the late 1800s and early 1900s to somewhere about maybe 1960. I'm just imagining. Although modest dressing is still emphasized, the organization has relaxed some restrictions, allowing for more contemporary and regionally accepted clothing choices. So they're still insisting women should not wear pants, but now they're saying in certain cold climates, women can now wear pants to activities, or when it is practical, when it is necessary. Now, what is the official reason for this policy change?
Do these adjustments about dress and grooming mean that we are lowering our standards? Not at all. These adjustments should not dilute the depth of our appreciation for serving Jehovah. More so, it's a recognition that styles change over time, and that what's considered acceptable, dignified dress for certain occasions also changes over time.
The governing body cited the cultural shifts and the need to accommodate diverse members of the Jehovah's Witnesses. For them, they're saying, well, we have just realized now that all of a sudden, after 152 years of our existence, we have members from diverse settings. And because of that diverse settings, we are now allowing women in certain circumstances to wear pants to congregation activities. You should wait for the real reason in part 2 to why these changes have been initiated. Another policy is facial hair policy for men. Now, beards were historically discouraged among Jehovah's Witnesses in many regions and for a very long time because they were seen as culturally inappropriate or rebellious. I remember from my youth days, I used to wear a beard and I've always maintained a mustache. And at one point, probably about 8 or so years ago, I decided to cut the beard. And in the recent past, a year or so ago, I started growing the beard. In fact, the last time I had a beard, my beard was black. And the next time I tried to grow it, I realized it had turned all white. And why am I saying this? I'm saying this for two reasons. First, my young brother, who is a Jehovah's Witness, when he saw that I'd grown a beard, he called me and asked me that why did I grow a beard? And I told him, the girls at my home love it. My wife likes it. My 2 daughters, they love it. So what is it? And even me, when I looked in the mirror, I saw that I was much more handsome with a beard than without it. And I said, why did I deny myself of this handsomeness? And then another day, I was watching a video of an ex-Jehovah's Witness and his wife, and he got into trouble with the congregation elders when he had grown a beard. And then it dawned on me and said, so that's why my young brother was correcting me for growing a beard. Now this makes sense. If you are enjoying this program, don't forget to like, subscribe, and strike the notice bell so that every time I upload a new video, you will be notified. And then you can choose whether to watch it or not to watch it. Now, the new policy allows men to grow a beard, but this has to be done very, very neatly. And we saw in the 2024 annual meeting, some of the members of the Jehovah's Witnesses, probably members of the governing body or their helpers, wearing beards, and particularly this one individual who made a lot of jokes about beards. So they are saying for areas where wearing a beard is culturally appropriate, you can wear a beard. I don't know whether they have learned from celebrities, particularly in football, because previous footballers were not wearing a beard. While when one of them, a famous one, grew a beard and everyone else was wearing a beard. Maybe even the Jehovah's Witnesses have learned from celebrity football players to start wearing a beard. Now, the problem is that there is still some prohibition for a person who does not have a well-groomed beard to be able to offer or engage in public talks or somebody holding leadership positions if their facial hair is deemed controversial. They've opened the door just a little bit that you can go in, but it's not wide enough that you can freely go through. You still have to squeeze your way through the quarter open door. And should you misbehave, they are going to close it. What is the official reason for these changes? The leaders emphasize the importance of personal grooming standards while respecting cultural differences. So in other words, they still are asking for maintaining grooming standards, but now they're saying we are now realizing that we have members from different settings, and because in some settings it's appropriate to wear a beard, you can wear it, but you must wear it according to our standards. You can't just wear it anyhow. And if you are a leader, you better even be more careful. And if you are going to make public talks and you are wearing controversial beard, you are going to run into problems with the elders of the congregation. Let's look at the fourth announcement that has been made by the governing body of the Jehovah's Witnesses. As previously mentioned, the interpretation of the generation in Matthew 24, verse 34, was revised again to include broader symbolic timeline. This change was described as part of the organization's commitment to progressive understanding and of adapting teachings to better reflect biblical truths. Here is a clip from the governing body explaining the changes in the prophetic timeline.
So, what about the future judgments during the Great Tribulation? Is there something that we can adjust with regard to our understanding? Well, before we start to do that, let's be quite frank. Over the last few years, we've had a few changes with regard to the events that occurred during the Great Tribulation. And if you've been in the truth for a while, sometimes it's a bit hard to remember, was that what we used to believe, or is this what we believe now? So to help us to make sure that we've got some idea of some of the events that occur during the Great Tribulation, let's look at this review. When will the final judgment of the sheep and the goats take place? Again, although we can't be dogmatic as to the exact sequence of events, it appears that the final judgment takes place at the end of the Great Tribulation, not at the beginning.
During the 2024 annual meeting of Jehovah's Witnesses, adjustments were made to the understanding of prophetic events, including the interpretation of Matthew 24, verse 34. Historically, this phase was linked to a generation that would see both the events of the 1914 and the fulfillment of end-time prophecies. The organization clarified or updated this interpretation, emphasizing that the timing and the unfolding of events are directed by God rather than hinging on specific generational constraints. In addition, broader changes were announced related to faithful and district slave concept and other prophetic timelines. These updates continue the organization's trends of doctrinal refinements based on what they described as new light, reflecting adjustment to align with perceived scriptural understanding or contemporary developments. A new light. God does not introduce the light at once, but the light gets brighter and brighter.
Proverbs 4:18. But the path of the righteous is like the bright morning light that grows brighter and brighter until full daylight. So the Bible here uses the illustration of daylight. And what does that teach us? Well, the Watchtower said, these words aptly apply to the way in which Jehovah reveals his purpose to his people gradually.
Let's look at the policy on higher education. So the Jehovah's Witnesses have had a tough stance on higher education. A training video used that was leaked about how to handle a member who allows a child to go for higher education shows how that is supposed to be handled. Here is a brief clip of that video.
And another one of Brother Brown's daughters have enrolled in a school for higher education, which raises questions as to how this affects the congregation. When we make decisions, it's important that we consider the conscience of the congregation as well as the elder body. Brothers, we are obligated to put the interests of the congregation first.
Brothers, with all due respect, I don't agree with you that the congregation is disturbed about my or my family's situation.
Brothers, are there any comments or questions that you have for Brother Brown?
Brother Brown, it is true. Some of the congregation have been negatively affected. They've been disturbed by the example of your daughters pursuing higher education. You've openly talked about wanting the best life for your daughters. And this has given some the impression that the only way to get the best life, it's not through spiritual things, but through secular pursuits. Some of the congregation are even confused about what the organization has stated regarding pursuing higher education. In fact, Sister Single's daughter is considering pursuing higher education because of the example of your daughters.
Now, they've softened this policy on higher education, which they are discouraged, saying that when you go to the university, you are going to be negatively influenced.
The better the university, the greater the danger. The most intelligent and eloquent professors will be trying to reshape the thinking of your child.
And therefore, for them, they thought going to the university will make you not to spend much time to do Jehovah's work. And at the same time, you end up getting a job that will keep you so busy. So Jehovah's Witnesses were condemned to manual work, manual jobs, blue-collar jobs, so that they can have enough time to work for the organization.
It requires faith to decline higher education and have the confidence that our material needs will be cared for by training in other fields of employment.
At the moment, they've taken a soft stand on higher education, now permitting its members to pursue practical education opportunities while prioritizing spiritual goals.
Ultimately, the parents must decide how much education a child needs to succeed in life. But does that mean that any decision a parent makes regarding a child's education is fine with Jehovah?
The official reason is that this has been allowed because it is allowing members to navigate the modern world without compromising their spiritual goals. How nice. The sixth policy is new mental health initiatives. The organization is rolling out resources to support mental health, including encouraging members to seek professional help when necessary. So these are things that the organization did not encourage in the past.
Got to the point here I was going to kill myself. I am not getting back together with her. This just isn't going to work for me. And they're like, oh, that's just a cop-out. Right? Like, and just completely like dismissed it and blew it away. There was nothing like, oh, maybe you need some help, right? Maybe you need to go see a psychiatrist, a therapist or something. There was none of that, right? And there was no meaningful help that they gave to really address, what those issues were.
And now with the increase of mental health challenges of the members of the Jehovah's Witnesses, and they have a lot of them because they are always threatened with Armageddon. They are always have to keep up with the standard of the organization. The pressure to conform is too high that it has created a lot of pressure for members.
Before I was 17, inclusive, I attempted suicide 3 times. The first 2 times, I don't think my parents knew about. But the third time, I ended up in the hospital.
I thought, the only way really out of this marriage was somebody had to die, right? So then it turned to like self-murder, like how can I kill myself, right? That led to eventually an attempt, right? I do remember just thinking this was the most logical thing to do. This just made the most sense. This had the best possible outcome for everybody, right? Thought if I could mix that with basically any other kind of drugs that I might have, cold medication, all that, I just swallowed basically like, a glass full of pills, I think. And just hoped that, I wouldn't wake up, from this. I had some sleeping pills in there too. But I did. I woke up probably like 20 hours later.
So the official reason is that now they are just realizing that they need to address growing mental health challenges that the members are facing, which they've been facing for a very, very long time. But I guess Jehovah's Witnesses didn't realize that their organization was causing emotional and mental toll on their members, especially an organization that rules and controls its members by fear. Now, these changes show an organization that is considerate of its members, that is trying to accommodate modern changes and modern developments that are going on so that the organization can be up to date with what is going on. The question is this really the true reason why these policy changes have been made? Find out part 2 of this video where I clearly show you the real reason why the governing board of the Jehovah's Witnesses have made these changes. If you have enjoyed this program, don't forget to like, subscribe, and strike the notice bell so that whenever I produce that video, you'll be notified. Also, consider sharing this video if you think that somebody else will find it useful. If you have questions clarifications, or you totally disagree with me, put your comments below and I'll respond to you. For the video that I talked about on Jehovah's Witnesses, doctrine, beliefs, and practices, click on this link. Remember, this video is in 2 parts. For part 2 of this video, click on this link.